that'll just be banner blindness, sort of. Like,
what's banner blindness?
Banner blindness is
when you can't see the Hulk.
It happened during, when AOL, when the internet happened, when you can't see the Hulk. Fuck you for that line. That was very good. I didn't give it the credit it deserved when you said it. That's so dumb.
Keep on sounding, honeys.
Hey idiots, your daddies are here in the best mood ever, here to entertain you using the value of knowledge, which was invented by John Knowledgeberg, which was actually co-opted by the local people before colonization. So did you know that knowledge is actually not a colonial invention, it's an invention of the locals?
I didn't realize John Knowledgeberg did that. I thought he discovered zebras.
He also discovered zebras and peanut butter. He did not invent peanut butter. He discovered it. Peanut butter was not invented until 500 years later by some other fuck. But we're not here to talk about those idiots. They're dead. They're in the ground. We could dance on their graves and no one would arrest us unless we, I don't know, we're launching fireworks.
Can you get arrested for grave dancing? I bet you can.
Depends who, right?
Yeah, there's probably I don't know, memorials or something like that where you can't do a thing. I don't know. I think there's,
My friend peed on some graves once. We were wandering around on bicycles and then we saw this graveyard and it turned out to be a Confederate graveyard. And then he had to go to the bathroom at the moment. So he's like, well, this is the perfect
opportunity
place to do it.
Did you used to hold your breath going by graveyards by chance?
Never.
I used to always hold my breath when I went by graveyards. I don't know. It's just a weird ritual that I have.
How long before? So this is you when you still kind of believed in stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had no idea what to believe about life until I was 10, and then that's when my first bits of hardcore skepticism started really showing themselves. But so probably by that time I wasn't holding my breath anymore. But
what's the superstition?
It's just a weird ritual.
They haunt you?
I don't remember where that started. I don't know if it was just a friend of mine that did it and I copied them. I have no idea. I didn't know if that was a common thing that kids do, or if it was just me. Maybe it was just me and my friends.
No, I mean, I probably did stupid stuff, but that wasn't one of them. One of my stupidest things is I didn't do enough stupid stuff. Maybe that was it.
Yeah. Ramin's actually doing this episode. This is the first time that this has happened where, because I was in a funk for the last couple days.
Not the good kind.
Not the good kind of funk.
Was it this 3-day long James Brown tribute concert?
and I texted Ramin earlier today that I'm we were going to do an episode on bipolar and take a survey and stuff. And we'll do that the next episode. But I didn't feel like I wanted to get some research in. I'm exceptionally anxious with a whole bunch of other things. And then after that, I went and got a haircut and they cut my beard way too short. And then that sent me on some spiral too. It actually looks okay now, but
I think you look like the image. You look like the cartoon image of yourself.
Yeah, maybe. And it grows really fast. So it grows a couple inches a month. So it grows back fast, but I was just irritated by that. I think there's a language barrier situation where I asked for 2 inches and he just pretended to know what
2 inches.
And he heard quattro. Which I usually really enjoy language barriers. Like I don't know if you found that to be the case, where I feel like people are just usually like more accommodating anytime there's language barriers, you know, like couples get together and say, like there's a lot of couples that are like, oh, this person speaks the second language. It's like very adorable. That
when their partner is not the same language.
Yeah,
I always thought that like you could never fully know each other in one of those. Not that like anyone can ever fully know each other because you're still just communicating with mouth sounds and you never are fully in someone's head, but just the lack of fluidity of the language when the other person is another thing. It's like, what are you doing? Which is still love and good and stuff, but I judge them a little bit. I'm like, oh, that's a shame. They'll never be as close as if they actually understood each other.
But I think there's like this kind of accommodating patience that comes along with it. Like I've been to other countries where English isn't the first language and stuff, and I don't know, and I've always and like my first like serious job was at a furniture factory with a lot of Mexicans that spoke like not the best English. And I always just thought that they were far more helpful and nicer than just because I just always thought there was something about like, if someone doesn't speak your language, I just feel like you smile because you're having to pantomime and stuff, which is fun. It's just kind of like a funny situation to be in. I don't know. There's something generally fun about it, but it gets irritating sometimes. Like I remember being in France and like trying to figure out the subway system, like, oh my God. And like, so when the pressure's on, when it matters, when you like need to catch a train or when you need to get your beard cut a certain length, there can be issues, but generally speaking, there's something about it. I don't know. Like one of the guys we talked about who's coming to Campout, Steve Churchill, the paleontologist that discovered some ancestral
dinosaurs.
Cousins of
Holy
ours.
Shit! The inventor of dinosaurs at Mumfest. Surely it costs extra to see him. Nope, all included in the general ticket price. Wow. Who says money? Who said inflation is bad and you can't buy the best stuff anymore? Turns out one more thing. There's one thing you can get.
You still can. For only $222. And we have so in our discussion, I thought was really interesting because there's been, and we touched on this, but not this aspect of language, where there was a lot of banging going on with like, humans and Neanderthals were banging and mating, and there's no way of knowing how much of that was like, there's clearly like some coercion along the way that happens within nature as well. But there would have had to be a fair amount of consensual stuff going on as well for it to happen that prominently, I would think. And it's happened. There's a few things, like I said in the past, I think that they can tell just from looking in our DNA that they're like there was some other ancestor, and they're like, the bones we haven't found yet, but there was something else in there somewhere along the way around this like period of time.
One that we have zero of, right?
Yeah.
Like we have not a single fossil of that asshole.
Yeah. But I thought, when I thought about that, I was like, man, how do you, because we don't know what language was like back then, other than inferring from the ability to make symbols, like in stone and stuff. If language is a symbol, and so if symbol making was something, you could probably infer, Neanderthals had big brains and everything else. They may have very well, they weren't as social as humans, but they may have very well had sophisticated language. But still, I was always like, well, how do you even get past the language barrier? And I thought, well, maybe it was like, maybe you just don't talk much.
Yeah.
And that's like, you tend to, it tends to be a common kind of cliche romantic thing where you go to some foreign country and there's like someone you can barely communicate with. And there's something like very attractive about that for whatever reason. It's like something about getting some of the words out of there. I don't know. I've always kind of
There is something to it. You're right. I mean, I was criticizing it from the long-term perspective where like you can't do the cutesy pantomiming thing for 10 years. But like first time meeting someone under the Arc de Triomphe in Paris or something. And then, and I think when you don't have upper level linguistics, you can't just immediately start talking about like, oh, can you believe this cancel culture? Or can you believe like all vaccine stuff? Just like the stuff we're just tired of.
They're going to legalize murdering pregnant women to protect the fetus. How does that make it? What?
Yeah, you can't have those discussions. You can just be like, oh, donut, good. You want food too?
Yeah, it's and you'll see on Instagram too some adorable videos of what's the one? Is it little what's her name? You know, the old lady, she has the like hilarious grandson that just like he has this hilarious laugh and he just films her. This old lady that
that one missed me.
Why can I never think of these things when it's because I don't pay attention to the name. I just see the videos and like it, and then they pop up in my feed once in a while.
Yeah, it's hard to remember names of people in real life, let alone little tiny size 4 font next to an even smaller profile picture.
His grandma, English is her second language. It's like kind of choppy, and she's this old lady that's like very fiery and yells a lot, but is also pretty fun and like likes pop music and stuff. And she just has all of the words wrong all of the time. And it makes for all these really funny Lady Mondegreens, which is the term for that.
What's a Mondegreen?
Lady Mondegreen is just the first guy that coined that specific thing. That was his that was his mix up. He heard there's some song with something on the green, and he was hearing Lady Mondegreen. So
there's a whole book of stuff like that. I heard like, excuse me while I kiss the sky. Excuse me while I kiss this guy. Mm-hmm. And countless others you can find, not here, but on a different show.
That would be a version of karaoke that I would maybe enjoy, where you actually put on the teleprompter the various like common misunderstandings of songs,
of the words. Sing the wrong version. Wrong versions only, like Kid Bop.
What's Kid Bop?
You haven't heard Kid Bop? It's on, I mean, I'm sure there's still ads for it on regular TV, but it's children singing the pop songs of the, of the 2010s, 11s, and 12s. You'll hear, and cute. It's funny when it's, and it's censored, of course, but it's funny hearing little kids being like, try to make me go to rehab. And I said, no. Like they tried to make the 8-year-old go to rehab, or the Linkin Park song of like, I tried so hard and got so far, and in the end, it doesn't even matter. So it's like these suicidal 8-year-olds singing in the choir. There's so many good ones. Forgot About Dre, I bet, is one. Mm-hmm. No N-words.
So I got a hold of Ramin because I'm in this terrible mood, and that was even before my beard, which it doesn't look as bad as I thought. But it was just, I was spiraling. I'm not even gonna get into all the stuff that I was upset about. I'm just
tune into the therapy episode for that one.
Yeah. So Ramin had a fantastic suggestion, which is
we're going to be talking about the history of social media for the most part. I mean, I know that, you can say that, well, social media first started with the invention of Morse code, or with the first invention of the letter, when people would save photos of their loved ones inside of little envelopes. I'm not talking about the vague, ones. We're going
yeah.
to talk about, the last 20 years. What has this last 20 years been about? What has grown out of it? What are little entities that spark up? What do they steal from the other entities and then eventually mash up together into a soup of what is now, where it's like they're all kind of the same except for the people in them.
We have such a privileged insight into the history of it, although I would not consider myself to be current. But boy, like the timing of our careers was such that we started just before like modern social media, or at least before it had any kind of influence or people were really using it.
Yeah.
And so the before and the after, and it's always, it kind of reminds me of like I did the road a lot. And when I started, I had MapQuest still. You'd print out the directions and look, and I'd have to reset my like short-term odometer thing or whatever to like, okay, in 1.6 miles, I need to like look for a left. And
it was fun.
It was.
And it seemed high tech at the time. It's like, I don't have to look at a map. It tells me when to turn. On the paper, I just look at the paper and it tells me once I'm at that street. Doesn't get any better than this.
But comics, it always blew my mind that comics would be on the road. Having had the experience that I had and all the misunderstandings and the difficulty of it with that much technology, with like, here is the perfect route. You don't need to sort it out for yourself with an atlas. People had an atlas in their car and they would get directions from like the comedy booker, and they would have to stop at payphones and hope that the person's by their phone to answer, and all these things that I don't think that we are missing out on that experience of all the things that like the internet's ruined everything. I don't think
it did, and it didn't. It
didn't,
always does both. That's the lesson. It always does both of it.
Right. So, but I cut you off when you're going to go into social media.
I did? Or you did?
I just a little bit. We were saying that we were just like in the kind of very, very beginning of it. And you're about to say something. It doesn't matter.
Oh, no, I don't remember at this point. And I don't think there was anything. I think I was going to like maybe just put a flower at the end of it and be like, and so that's nuts. But maybe there was something to it. What's the first social media you remember?
MySpace. I remember.
MySpace is the first?
Yeah, I remember. Because I caught my breaks in 2007. So those are my first headlining gigs in 2007. And I remember going to these comedy clubs, and I remember people being so nervous. Like I would get booked because I was just on Conan and my agent was building me up and everything else. And then I'd get picked up in the car or whatever by the club owner. And I'd be like, so how long you been in the business? I'd be like, I just started my third year of comedy. They're like, I'm like, how many clubs have you played? Oh, this is my third time headlining ever. And they'd be like, oh.
Honest Arnie over here. What's a name that starts with on? Honest Orny. I remember Brent Weinbach did the opposite, in which he specifically would never tell anyone how old he was. And he had a little bit of gray hair even in his late 20s. So he used that to his advantage. He wouldn't tell people how long he'd been headlining, what his first headlining week was. Turns out I'd met him on his first headlining week, but he didn't want people to know that he was new to headlining. He wanted people to think he was in his 40s, had been doing this forever.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You know who my feature act was for my first time headlining?
What, Bach?
No.
Kaplan?
No.
Okay, first time. Joel McHale. Amy Schumer. Anthony Jeselnik.
It's in the...
Pete Holmes.
TJ
Miller.
You're really close.
Kumail Nanjiani.
You're very close.
Wait, which one was close?
Bigger still.
Bigger than Kumail?
Like Amy Schumer or bigger.
Amy Schumer or bigger?
Yeah.
Kevin Hart?
No.
What's bigger than Amy Schumer? She owns like a country now. She's like 50% owner of Google, 75% shareholder of Apple. John Mulaney. Bigger than Amy Schumer? Maybe in likability.
Not.
More likable than Amy Schumer, but not in terms of Like if you had to measure
you think his Netflix things you think her Netflix specials do better than hers?
I mean, she does arenas and has been doing arenas for a while and has movie deals and stuff. And
smaller than Amy Schumer.
Yeah. But it's still in the same ballpark, though.
Well, I'm thinking, is Amy still doing the same stuff? Like
I never followed it.
I think she slowed down a little bit. But anyway. But yeah,
still crazy.
Still crazy, and he was so good.
He's always been good.
He's always been good. It was a little hard to follow. I did good, but it was also when I realized that my act was good in short form at the time. And after 30 minutes because I had only ever featured, after 30 minutes of what my style was at the time, it got too like redundant or like I think Jesselneck runs into that just a little bit too, where it gets like a hair too predictable. Like watching a 5-minute set or seeing one of his jokes or whatever, it's like, that's a fucking great joke, but an
hours
hour
a different
of the
game.
Same rhythm, and that kind of
2
set me
hours
off
no
on
one can
adapting
do
quite a bit.
2 hours of anyone, it's like, get me out of here. I don't care.
I used to sometimes on special shows, I would do 45 minutes to an hour and then an intermission. And my psychedelic tour, I did an intermission because otherwise my merch lines were too long. I'd miss out on sales. So I would do 45 minutes to an hour. I'd take an intermission, sell a bunch of, I was actually selling merch before shows because I sold so much. And then I would do 45 minutes to an hour, and then I do an intermission for like 15, 30 minutes or something like that, sell a bunch more merch. And then I do another 45 minutes to an hour. And it seemed to always work well, but that's an intermission. Like Dave Chappelle, I don't want to see him for 4 hours, but I guess his shows where he has like intermissions and has like music in between and stuff can be pretty cool.
I would love it if he did merch in the middle. If he did an intermission and like just did merch, or just a little bit of humbleness, which I get that's not the brand, and someone has to be that thing of like just the very confident goat who calls themselves the goat. But wouldn't it be funny if he went through a humble phase where he's like, I don't know about those last specials. I think they kind of sucked. I think I suck sometimes. Anyway, I'm selling these DC shirts. It's for my name's Dave Chappelle's 2022 tour. Come pick them up.
I don't know why you can't be humble and confident. I don't know why that's not a trait that a person can have. It doesn't seem.
Me hang out with movie stars? No, I don't hang out with movie stars really. So anyhow, that was that was 2007, and that was my introduction to MySpace, which is like, I had no interest in it, but I just wanted to get butts in the seat because there was a lot of pressure on me to do well. And so I was always, from the beginning, I was always just trying to game social media. So I would figure out the things that would just like add a bunch of MySpace friends or whatever, like quickly in a certain area and stuff like that. I was always doing crap like that and trying to figure that out. It's all about the content, though, as we've learned. Content plus presenting it in the right way. But Dane Cook figured out MySpace. He was the first person to really be like, who cares if I'm not burning these clips? I'm putting them out there, and then more people will come see me. And then everyone else had that old school mindset of like, no, if I put out my material, they won't be surprised. But he went the opposite way. So he won MySpace. Rob Delaney won Twitter. Andrew Schultz won YouTube. Whoever won Facebook, probably someone in the Midwest or something. Someone's got to have won Facebook, but I wanted to,
not in our sphere.
Yeah, but there was this other social media site called 6 Degrees, which came out in 95 or something. No, maybe before that. I don't know. It came out a long time ago, and no one used it.
Based off the Kevin Bacon thing?
Yep, exactly, based off the Kevin Bacon thing. But it was before.
Should we tell people what that is? Everyone knows, right?
Oh, if you don't know, then you're a dumb idiot, and you owe us $5 each. So you owe me
6
$5.
degrees away
You
from
owe
me.
Shane $5. You owe $10 total. Hope you saved.
Everyone knows that by now, I would think.
Yeah,
It's
but
just,
yeah, explain it.
any person, any like person on Earth is like 6 degrees away from Kevin Bacon. Essentially, at least anyone in entertainment is like, this lighting person worked on this movie, and this movie was produced by this person, and this person once was roommates with this actor, and this actor was an extra during the Kevin Bacon this and that, and you can there was a period of time. I remember hearing them on Howard Stern way back when I was a Howard Stern fan, like 25 years ago or whatever it was, and there someone wrote that, whoever wrote that book, they like really went into it. So like they just spent a great deal of time going through every single actor and their degrees away and making the connections, and they could just do it off of the top of their head.
Damn.
I mean, Doug Benson sort of has that sort of a
Movie brain.
autistic movie brain kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I haven't tuned into Doug Loves Movies in a while, but that's a podcast that's been going on forever. So yeah, what he's accumulated there and outside the podcast has to be a lot. But isn't that so cool to be a Kevin Bacon? I mean, I'm sure he has mental problems and he's almost dead because he's 68 or
You
whatever.
think so? I think he seems cool. He seems like a grounded dude.
But stuff that would make you feel like a main character in this world, to be like, it's 6 degrees
6
of not
degrees.
of Phil, it's of me. Everyone is somehow 6 degrees related to me. Like, wow. And that's a cultural thing in the zeitgeist. Like, I'm very much not a main character, and I'm cool with that. And maybe I will be a main character one day, but when you look around, like, who the main characters are, it's like, no, I'm clearly not one of the main ones, but I'm still having fun here.
Yeah, I mean, but part of the whole thing with the 6 degrees, it was not picking the biggest megastar in the world. Too, like that was a little bit of a part of it.
That's true. It's his mediumness.
It was like it was like you're especially famous for, like you're Iverson or something. You're like the sixth man. I think I may be getting that right. I don't know my sports.
Allen Iverson?
I think Allen Iverson was like
he wasn't good.
Famous
Sixer.
Yeah.
Oh, the Philadelphia Sixers or whatever it is.
No, he was good, but he was a sixth man. He wasn't a starter, I don't think.
Really?
I think he was considered like the best non-starter. I think he started sometimes and sometimes not.
I got to bring back the phrase non-starter.
Sure I'm getting everything wrong.
No, it's okay. It's for this podcast.
Yeah.
This podcast can be wrong. Did you know Facebook was invented in 1862? Because it wasn't. And there's nothing interesting or funny about that. So take out that and take out the whole episode. Where were we?
McCool, delete this whole episode.
McCool, find out all information about me on the internet and delete it. I'll give you power of attorney. Just erase my whole life. Erase it. So do you remember Friendster? Friendster is what came after.
Wait, so 6 degrees, just nobody used it at all?
I mean, maybe 100 people used it, but it was dead on arrival for the most part. And no one remembers it outside of history.
Can I stop you with a related thing before we move on? How about the because when I was in high school, that was when, God, I wish I could remember the name of it, but that was when the video game, like the networking start, where I remember you could go into a computer lab and you could play World of Warcraft with 8 other people
LAN
connected
parties
to the same thing. But there was stuff online that was like the earlier where you could type what you were doing. You'd be like, oh, I'm going west, and I'm going west again, and now north, now throw dart, and now eat apple or whatever, and you'd have to type it all in.
So like ICQ, AIM, Messenger.
Something like that. I don't know, but it was it was a game. It was just written rather than graphics.
Yeah. Like, but what do you mean? Like in terms of that's like a social network before a social network?
And like you'd make friends on it and stuff,
Yeah.
and it does sort of bleed together, the world of Warcraft and the world of online video gaming and making friends that you play with. Like the game Teach You, I always had like certain people I'd be like, hey, such and such, my name on there, which I won't share in case I get addicted again, and people find me and coax me into playing more often than I should.
That's how they really take you down.
Yeah.
Or just book up all the pickleball courts.
Yeah. You can like slander me with weird 3-star reviews of my podcast because we did 2 episodes of the Campout that you can't go to. And you're like, they used to talk about things and now they talk about this Campout. And I wish they wouldn't talk about a Campout.
Wait, that happened?
Thing. There was one 3-star review like that I was like, oh, fuckface. I wish you could write reviews back, be like, so you loved the show up until we had 2 episodes in a row about a Campout, and that was when you decided to write a 3-star. So all of the time we were asking for a review, you didn't write a 5-star review when you loved the show. When there was 2 episodes in a row for a cool thing that we're putting together that you weren't as interested in, that's when you decided you're going to give us a 3-star review and point out that like they haven't done a topic in a while. Like what? When have we caught?
Yeah, it's true. With when you post anything on or with music or if you make art or something, the first bad thing, there's the old saying where if you have a good experience, you tell a friend. If you have a bad experience, you tell 5.
Yeah, exactly. But I would rather that happen than someone find out my where I play my dumb game and coax me into playing more, because I will. It will ruin my life. But
yeah,
anyway.
That's why I don't look at the reviews. It's never going to be good because I won't feel the good ones.
Positive.
I won't feel any good from the good, and I'll only feel bad from the bad. So I just don't look at it. Just because you wrote words doesn't mean I have to look at it. I'll never look at it. Take that.
I'll look at all of them. So make sure and write a bunch of good ones.
Yeah, still write good ones, but I'm just never going to look at them.
Drive me and give me fuel. They make me happy. I like looking at them.
Oh, that's good. I wish I could read them for you. I wish you could have my reading of it so you could get 2,
Yeah.
It's like I got the sweet potato fries or something and I didn't want them. So then I wish I could give them to you, but you just enjoy the reading of them that you've got right now. But let's see, going back to what was it? 6 Degrees to Friendster to AIM Messenger, ICQ. So, these are like intermediate steps between the social network, which
can I stop you again? Because I guess I was never really hip to what Friendster was, because I never used Friendster and I just thought it was only a music sharing thing.
Oh, that's Napster. Friendster
Napster
is an early Facebook kind of thing that also didn't really catch on, but did a little bit better than 6 Degrees, just a little bit.
Okay.
This is around 2002.
Okay.
So predates MySpace a little bit. MySpace had more going on and it just had the hip factor too. So the hip factor just wins 10 times out of 10.
What was Friendster like?
You know, I have to look up a picture because I don't even remember. I didn't use it. I remember my brother had it and some other people had it too, but I couldn't fathom using it. But this is also at a time when I'm in high school, so I'm surrounded by peers. College, also surrounded by peers. Computer is not the fastest ever. So you're like, why would I put my face on this slow ass thing? Yeah, it looked kind of like MySpace, but you couldn't do enough with it.
Man, I think that was one of the part of when people are like, everyone's going to go crazy if you just lock them down or whatever. And you can't just isolate people. And I don't think it was that. I think in some cases it was, but I think that it was people were, I think there was a huge percentage of the population that discovered social media for the first time during a global pandemic and went on to like Facebook and were like, what the fuck is the world? And then just like, I'm going to get in on this too. So, and it just went fucking bananas.
I wonder if there's numbers on that.
I don't know.
Where you just see it spike up in one way. Yeah, and if you don't have the tools to discern that this headline might not be true or is true contextually, and if you understood the larger picture, you wouldn't be as heated up about it. But you just see one picture of Fauci and a dead puppy or something, and then it's like, oh, he's putting dead puppy blood in the vaccines,
and especially if you've like never, I'm sure there's a lot of like Midwestern people that have never gotten like much of a negative comment in their lives, you know, like in real life.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone keeps it like very civil in a lot of like rural areas of the Midwest. So like you just, you know, keep it about sports and weather and like, you know, you talk and gossip and so much gossip, of course.
But never in person.
You make sure that everyone is like okay with the gossip first, and then you talk shit and whatnot. But never, you don't have to be confronted with those negative comments.
Yeah.
And so it's like also the first time that you need to see negative comments, and because we're like so used to it, and it still bothers us.
Yeah. And then this is what now 2 years of this.
Yeah.
Plus even more. Like it was all trickling in, but yeah, for sure the lockdown give it a boost. No pun intended. Or no, you know what? I'll give it a pun. It gave it a booster shot. Yeah, give it the booster shot. And
so MySpace was the slicker version.
Yeah, MySpace was the slicker version. They were dominating, and then I don't know why Facebook took over. I think it's because MySpace became too bogged down with people. Like you could insert like action script, HTML, whatever you wanted into the bio section, so you could take over the whole page, and it just became everyone's world was a mess, whereas Facebook was a cookie cutter. Like every profile is the same. It loads real fast. I think that was it. I think load time was how they won. And then there was this huge migration from MySpace to Facebook in around 2004. But let's talk about Facebook first before we talk about the migration. Mm-hmm. Did we ever talk about your first Facebook encounter? Maybe it's not interesting, the encounter of it, but when did you get it? When did you feel like, all right, fine, I'll use this thing?
Oh, kicking and screaming, actually. I remember I hated social media from the beginning. I went on MySpace and I was like, I'm not interested in using this as a medium for creative expression at all. Like it didn't appeal to me at all. And so I would figure out other ways of like, I'll just like game the system in certain ways and post some late night clips and stuff like that and wish for the best. But I'm not going to like dedicate my life to this thing. And then my agent and managers, which I got in the first half of 2007. So when did Facebook come around? It would have been just before that, probably. Or right around that time. Do you know? It
started in 2004, but it didn't hit people outside of college till a couple of years later.
Yeah, so it was right about that time, because it suddenly went very quickly, but Dane Cook had already had the MySpace thing, and so then it was like Facebook was like the NFT to the Dane Cook Bitcoin in a way of like it capitalized on it. There was a lot of fear of missing out at the time, except they were actually right. That it did become the future and everything. And so I remember both my agent and my manager giving me, maybe not a hard time, but so early on when I had a lot of buzz and everything, I was just like, I didn't compromise at all.
Artistic integrity wise.
Yeah. And then once I like got familiar with the road and was like, oh boy, this is just hard for everybody involved. This is difficult. This is difficult for bookers to make decisions. This is difficult for agents to acquire work. This is difficult for managers to guide things. And so I need to be giving a little bit, I need to be taking some of their suggestions. And I wouldn't go, anytime I went to LA, I had so many auditions for different things lined up, and I would just like not go to them. I would just I didn't even know, but I would like look at it and be like, I don't like this, and then I would just like not go and just hope that my agent and manager wouldn't find out.
They know.
Oh, they do know. Yeah, I didn't know that at the time.
And they spend a lot of time putting that together, which is fine to not go.
A lot of time putting that together.
But you should say, and I need to be better about that too.
I was, I was pretty young and things were happening pretty fast, and I might have had like a little bit of an ego about things at the time. And it is funny to look back and even at the time, people are like, "You did what? You got an audition?" And blew it up for like Californication or like real like actual like big shows and stuff, and I'd be like, I don't know, I'm just like not interested in this. And I was such a stand-up purist for ridiculously too long. It's probably why I've gone the other way with it now, where I'm like, I could never do stand-up again in my life and I'd be fine with it.
But please purchase tickets. Please come see me.
Yeah.
I wish I could have a purist. Maybe I am already doing that to something, but
I don't know, man.
I'm jealous of people that can like go, I always wanted to be a mandolin player since I was 4, and that's what I did. Now I'm the number 1 mandolin player on earth.
But I remember, what was your New Year's resolution again? Do you remember?
Stop sucking my own ass with as much force, like reduce the force at which I suck my own ass by like 10%.
That was one of them, but there was...
I wanted to go from to like...
How's that going, by the way?
Not good. It's going bad.
It seemed to have backfired. They've only increased.
It's fine. It's just at the time we're recording this, I think there's some weird solar flare thing going on, which I read accounts of it being bullshit and accounts of it being true, but it makes sense. Solar flares can affect the ionosphere and change brainwave activity.
Sure.
It's got science sounding words in it.
Why not?
I'll throw in a beaker for free.
I mean, there'd be pretty easy ways to test that, one would think, because they have like electromagnetic helmets and stuff you can put on people.
And then just wait for a solar flare and then have your test group and be like, okay, let's see if they're any foggier.
Well, I mean, you should be able to replicate the physical influence of a solar flare. I would think.
Oh, right. You wouldn't even need to wait for the actual thing. The only reason I gave it credibility is because Michael Garfield posted about it, and he's not someone to shake a stick at. He's a thinker.
He's a thinker, and he's very, very smart, but he also gravitates to the newest discovery of like, oh, did we find gold here? And which is awesome, and we definitely need people doing that. But
don't round them up. Don't do it. I
think that just a lot of those things end up being fool's gold. That's all.
Like fool's gold is still pretty cool looking.
Fool's
Iron
gold is
pyrite.
great. Yeah. But then what's the deal? Like gold's not so special anyway. But yeah, so I remember your New Year's resolution was to spend more time learning some specific instrument. I don't know what it was, but you were like, it was very specific about some instrument. You were like, I really want to like get better at this aspect of this instrument. Like, what an odd New Year's resolution
maybe left
to have.
right hand piano independence. Maybe it was that.
I think that it was something like that. And it was like all my New Year's resolutions were I want to be better at accounting and emailing people back and stuff like that. So I think in that way, you're a bit of an artist purist.
Yeah. If I put it all under the art umbrella, then I guess I am One Direction.
Is Kat making dinner right now, by the way?
You hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
She's got things beeping and going off. She's throwing pans around. It sounds like she's whipping up a storm over there.
Oh yeah, normally it doesn't come through.
I wish I was there. How does it smell?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's just dishes right now. Maybe it's just general organization. Normally doesn't pick up.
It's fine.
Adds to the flair of the episode. What do you think of that 3-star guy?
So yeah, I guess I've always had this artist purist thing in me. I remember, speaking of social media, I remember chat boards early on, and there was like comedy chat boards in Boston, and there'd be anonymous ones where everyone was required to have a different name and stuff, and I was troop supporter because I just always thought it was hilarious that comics would be like, how about a hand for the troops, huh?
Hand for your wait staff. One more time for the troops.
And I just vehemently hated pandering and hack stuff. And I look back on it and I'm like, I was young and idealistic and got myself more worked up than was probably necessary or appropriate, and probably still do at times. But I was like that with social media as well, where I just always thought, when they're pushing me toward Facebook, I always thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And like, I've always hated popular things. And this is just another one of those, like, this is just more things for the stupid idiot population to like indulge in.
We had no idea.
It was, and they're like, my agents and managers like started becoming frustrated with me because I wouldn't like go on auditions. They'd bring me into like, like fucking CBS to like pitch a show, and I just tell CBS that I don't like television. And I had like multiple meetings like that. And then
you can never complain about not being embraced by any industry thing.
I mean, it's funny because it's like it's a weird thing of the some might call it the karma of the of the universe, but it's like when you're seeking something, people tend to pick up on that, and it tends to skirt away from you. And like when you're really hungry for whatever mate or whatever job or whatever, and so I think there was something attractive about that, and it was like clearly authentic to people that like I did not care.
It's the Kurt Cobain corporate magazine still suck t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the cover of Rolling Stone. It's like, we got to get this guy that hates corporate magazines on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah. And so when Twitter came around, that was the first time where I was like, oh, you could put jokes on here. You could put one-liners on here. I can see this working as a medium for comedy. And that
was wild. You want to try a little experiment, but don't tell anyone what you're looking up, like, because you might want to go delete stuff. But you can search your old tweets. Think of bad words that you couldn't tweet now. I guarantee you said at least a couple of them in 2007 or 8. We all did.
Yeah.
We're all slurring here, raping this, everything that this person's dumb. It's all there. Even if you didn't write it, it's just there.
It was. Yeah, I was pretty shock value-y. I mean, I will say that I've done that before when I'm like, what did I say about, like,
Japanese people?
Say Trump in 2015 or something. And I'm like, that's pretty good. I'm going to retweet that one, that tweet from 7 years ago or whatever. That's safe, though. Right. But I thought one of the, so then once I got into it, I thought one of the interesting things was that you can just say the most absurd, like, if you really don't care, you can say the most absurd things. And some of my stuff tended to lean shock value, but I was also, so I went through a period of time when I moved to Austin, when I met you. At that time, that's when I got into social media. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to do social media, then I'm going to do it. And I had a scheduler, so that Hootsuite. So I would have a tweet every 3 hours. And so I was tweeting and also sharing it on Facebook 8 times a day, which, like, no one's writing 8 good jokes a day.
No,
but nobody. And so it was, at the time I was like, well, this is an interesting way to brainstorm, you know, and then
the stuff that engages well, you then take on stage. You're like, there's something here. I'll try that, which I still see to this day. I'll see people do a tweet, and even if it doesn't get likes, they'll try it on stage word for word.
I think that's good practice.
Yeah, it's just kind of stupid sometimes, though.
It is. It's absolutely stupid sometimes, but I don't think what works on Twitter works in front of a live crowd and vice versa. And
no,
so it's
rarely.
It's like,
and if it is, it's coincidental.
Yeah, and so I always thought social media was like this silly throwaway thing where you could just, like, have, like, half amusing, half baked thoughts. And then, but, you know, I never did all that well off of social media.
But it was that, though. It did used to be that. And I'm not advocating for, like, we got to make things the way they used to be. Like, it's out of our control. Like, things are, Twitter was it's a frivolous, silly place where we wrote outrageous one-liners, and then eventually it became this place where we're basically sharing police brutality videos, not in favor of them, but, you know, to spread word of, like, this is what just happened, like, this is just what happened in Minneapolis, this gets retweeted, this governor just said this about this, let's go. Like, it became a serious water cooler discourse place, and you can't have both. You can't really be both of them. I mean, you can, but it also comes with why people get in trouble now on Twitter, because the seriousness is also there now. It's not just the silliness. So then if you're coming there with the silliness and then someone interprets it, or they're in a serious mood, you're going to get the backlash, even if it was just a joke.
I mean, I will agree that you could go through anyone's profile and find things that are offensive or whatever, but I mean, still, I just, you're in a pretty fortunate position if that does happen. If
If you get canceled retroactively,
I hope to one day be big enough to get canceled for something that I said in 2014, and that's how far they have to search back.
yeah, you're doing really good if you have to post a video of yourself crying and apologizing. Have you seen Martin? I probably already brought this up already, but whatever, it's a good plug. But Martin Urbano is taping a new stand-up special, and it's called Apology Comeback Show.
Who's Martin Urbano?
He's a comedian. Did
he get in trouble for something?
No, he didn't. But he's like,
it's just a funny.
He's an outrageous voice, like where he says it's tough to put him in a category because he's not offensive in the way that Jesselnick is or Don Rickles is, but kinda is. Like he'll be like, this lady came up to me and called me, at a show. She said that my joke was homophobic, and I said, lady, I may be a racist, a misogynist, a homophobe, a pedophile, a Obama birther, and he just like names all these things, and then it just ends with good night.
That's very funny.
Or he did this other one where he's on Kimmel, and at the very beginning of the set, he gives one audience member 3D glasses. He's like, this is for the end of the show. You're going to want to like put these on when it's my closer. And then he does his whole set. And then when it's time for his closer, he like points to the person with the 3D glasses, like, are you ready? And then they put it on, and then he just goes, and just walks right up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking back, because the same time that I got into social media was the same time that I went through this phase. Like I said, it was in Austin when I met you, and I didn't know. I know I wanted to expand what I was doing, but I didn't know in what way. And so I was watching like a lot of cable news and stuff at the time, and flipping between Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, and like thinking so. I actually think that I would stand by a good number of my political ideas at the time. They're probably not as like nuanced and informed as they might be now, but that's an ongoing process anyway. 10 years from now, same thing as now. Yeah. But I would say if I was going to get canceled for something, it would be, if you went through my past stuff, it would be me saying something really harsh about like a beloved celebrity, because I always liked taking a piss out of like.
Oh, that's a good gamble then, because most celebrities probably, you never know. I mean, like Ricky Martin is in trial now for raping his nephew or something now. Like everyone's going under.
That's the only, like when like Ari Shaffir got in a lot of trouble for making fun of like Kobe when he died in a helicopter thing. I'm like, that's the sort of thing that I used to be like down with, where it's like, why is everyone caring so much about this single person when there's a world full of poverty and all of these like fucking horrific things happening to the majority of most people all of the time that no one's talking about, and we're like caring an extraordinary amount about this person that is like good at some silly acting thing, or
Kobe was actually never that good of an actor,
or whatever else. I mean, just celebrities in general, but I appreciate the joke.
Wouldn't it, I mean, I know you already understand this, and I think, current Shane would also understand that it's not just we loved him because he was good at shooting a basketball, but he represented something to each person personally. Like it represented, striving and earning that thing.
I'm not defending mocking someone that died with his daughter in a helicopter at all. I'm just saying, like, that's the sort of stuff that I would look back on and be like, ooh, Shane, probably, that was a little cringy. Wish you wouldn't have posted that. Those would be the ones where I'd be like, you went a little too hard into the angsty against. I mean, any listener to this show would already know that I like have it in for pop culture stuff a little bit. And it was more so when I was younger.
Yeah, specifically with the Ari thing, he did really step in it because he was
Absolutely.
doing that for everybody, every celebrity that died. He did that exact same format. So eventually you're going to hit one that's like,
yeah.
And then he played it fine, I think. I don't think he's still looking around the corner for someone about to stab him. I think enough time goes by and our memory is so short. Like, you know, the war with Ukraine, like no one talks about the war with Ukraine now. No one talks about Roe v. Wade a week later. This person dies. You don't talk about it a day later. Like we're moving.
We are moving. As you say that, what do you think about that? Do you think that's just... I wonder how much of that is our nature and how much of that is hijacking our nature. And there's always there's always a mix between the nature versus nurture and genetic versus environment stuff. But how much of it is like a phenotypic effect of that as hunter-gatherers, you would always need to be kind of exploring, finding the next area, making sure like keeping an eye out for where the next food source would be. And it is sort of like that on social media now. Like you can't really get too comfortable on Instagram. I love Instagram. I had a couple, like my last 2 days that were rough. I was like, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing myself having like negative, like behavior with like scrolling Instagram more than is healthy as
were you seeing the same posts a lot?
Yeah.
That's when you know it's bad, when you've seen the same thing you don't care about 8 times. First
time ever that I've had like where I recognized this is
welcome to the real world.
But you know, if I had it my way, if I were emperor of Mum World, I would be like, all right, everyone just uses Instagram. That's all we get. And I don't need to change or adapt in any other way. And, but that's not a realistic, that's just not realistic for the human experience. And so there's something, you know what I'm saying? Like some parallel between like needing to make sure you're keeping an eye out as a hunter-gatherer for like, oh, I saw like some flowers blossoming over in that terrain over there. So let's make sure and be there a few months from now when it fruits, so that we can collect that. And it's not dissimilar from it's exactly what we have to do as artists on social media.
No, that is what has been hijacked for sure. But I mean, the long arc of it, I think this is destined to happen, and we're just going through it, and we're living out the arc of whatever we're living out. But yeah, of course, the people doing the algorithm know these things. They understand psychology. They test it. They know what works, what to boost and increase engagement. There's all documentaries about it. It's tiring to even talk about how they're manipulating us. So I don't even want to really go down that hole that much, but I love going down holes.
I think it's worthy exploration.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on, you were saying you wished everyone was on Instagram instead of scattered all over the place. And it is weird that we kind of crave having everyone accessible in one place. Like I would love for there to be one database and everyone who's ever lived and all the content, all the podcast photos of everything of them is just searchable from there. And I can pull up everything they've thought of or done. But then there's like people, what if I don't want to be part of that system? What if I only want to be part of this system? So there's little freedom nodes involved where everyone can't just all be on the one.
Why do you think there's not a everything book by now, where it's just whatever you post So Ramin
parents-
posts something on Instagram, and then because
if your parents are on it, you don't want to be on it, which is why any migration has taken place. The migration away from Facebook was because people age up and then they start having kids. So then the grandparents are like, now I'll get it because photos of my grandkids are on there. And then that triggers the next generation to move to Snapchat and to TikTok and all these things. But Facebook was such a gradual sinking its teeth into everyone, because I got it in college where it was just your photo. You had one thing that was a profile picture, and there was a wall, and anybody could write anything on the wall and anyone could erase the wall. It had no attribution to it. So a prank someone could do would just be to erase your wall and put like an ASCII dick on it or something. And then eventually that, they couldn't do that forever. Eventually it was like, okay, now your name is written next to it. Okay, now there's photo albums. You can upload multiple photos of yourself. Now there's a news feed. They like rip off Twitter. They rip off Twitter's verification thing. They rip off the video. Facebook is really good at seeing trends places and either buying that company or stealing the feature and hoping they just drown the other one. And that's how they've stayed in the game for, holy shit, almost 20 years now.
Which for a social media platform is legacy stuff.
Yeah. I heard that from someone that worked there that there's the Facebook campus is where Sun Microsystems main office used to be. And there's an old faded out sign of Sun Microsystems, and they keep it there as a reminder of like, this could be us any day. This is not guaranteed. We could be nothing tomorrow. That's why we got to spend $1 billion for this little app that does nothing but has all the attention. We'll spend $1 billion here. We'll take away this feature. We'll make people aggravated here. We'll give money to this politician, so on and so on. So on and so forth. All of them are pretty evil seeming, aren't they? Like, I guess Jack Dorsey is the least evil looking one, but
I think he's Jack Dorsey. Then
I don't trust him. He's good though.
He has me tricked.
He's good.
He has me tricked.
The other ones don't have me tricked at all.
If Jack Dorsey isn't legit, then he has me fooled. I mean, he took a quarter of his net worth and donated it to COVID relief, like right at the beginning. He's done some stuff that was like beyond necessary, beyond like, this isn't. And not only that, but he broke down, like you can still find it. He broke down like a spreadsheet of every single organization where like every single dollar went, and made that public as well. And
okay, I changed my mind. He's all right.
And he's done a few things like that where it's like, you don't need to do that. And I'm not sure that helped your marketing. And I don't know. He just strikes me as there are people that there are a lot of people in the world that are intrinsically motivated to do good, and sometimes, no matter how powerful that force is, external external drives and forces and things can manipulate you, and there's motivated reasoning and everything else. But there are people that, like, maybe were successful because they like are stubborn, in their ethics and their whatever their belief is in their product or whatever, and that's something that carries forward through the duration of their business beyond the point where it's still financially viable even.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there that are like, well, yeah, I could make a lot of money with my successful business doing this, and I get asked about that all the time, but I'm not going to. I'm fine with where my money's at, and I like want to keep on putting this product out there that I believe in and leave something cool behind. So I actually don't even think it's that rare that happens. I just think that there's that CEOs in particular have some of the highest rates of psychopathy and narcissism,
of course,
and Machiavellianism,
of course,
that exists. So it's just beyond the average in the population. But that's also, a lot of people have those same traits and do fucking horribly in life too. So there's, I don't know. I think there's good people out there. Just because you've made money along the way doesn't necessarily mean that you're evil or whatever. But I mean, I think Twitter is such a thing that it's like part of it's beyond anyone's control. When I read some of the stuff that Jack Dorsey writes, I'm like,
what does he write?
I just think you're in a very tricky position, because he does believe in like certain amounts of freedom of speech and everything. And it's like, what do you have freedom of speech over here? You have insanely harmful misinformation over here. And you're like a dude trying to, with other
at a
people
time where
around,
it's never happened.
Trying to like figure out like, okay, here's, I mean, the power of kings, of what, like, beyond that of what Dorsey and Zuckerberg and
Zuckerberg doesn't seem good. He doesn't seem like he has the best interest in humanity. I don't know. Maybe he has the best interest in whatever species he is.
I think that he might not be smart enough to be as good as he would like to be. He doesn't strike me as like a particularly intelligent person for where he's at. He doesn't, I don't know. Maybe I haven't heard him
maybe
talk
not
about.
like in an interview or something, but clearly he is, based on the moves he's done. Like, he's avoided, so many other people would have just had the whole thing collapse. Mm-hmm. Or something, but to have done what he's done, and really the main criticism is just his roboticism and stuff, and that it's not doing what I want him to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, who else we got? We've got TikTok, and TikTok is just TikTok is just the Chinese government or something, right?
I don't know.
I think it is. I think TikTok is just the Chinese government. I should look it up. Is TikTok?
That's hilarious.
I still don't understand China.
There's something very funny about that. I guess I can laugh because I don't know world affairs, but there's something very funny about that, like about infiltrating other countries with dance videos, etc.
That's what Giannis Papas has a joke about. It's like, it's called TikTok because they know our time's up. They're just counting the seconds till they take over. But and I heard something about, this might just be conspiracy talk, but it makes sense. But I heard that in America, the algorithm favors dumb content that makes you stupid, and then in China, it favors like stuff to make the youth smarter. It's like geared more towards helping the youth as opposed to distracting and making them stupid idiot sacks full of piss, which nothing wrong with being an idiot, nothing wrong with being a sack, nothing wrong with having it be full of piss. But
it's just when you're all three.
Yeah, you don't want all three.
Maybe some time for self-reflection.
So it's owned by ByteDance LLC by Zhang Yiming. I don't know what that is. And I don't know how the Chinese communist government works. Is it communism? Is anything like, how they say America is not a democracy, we're a democratic republic, and not even that. And then China, it's not a communist, it's like a democratic communist. I don't know what it is.
It seems pretty damn capitalistic to me. Yeah, these are weird labels. It seems like they get tossed around for political gain and fear. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about. You can't really ask me about the last 300 years of humanity, which I know is the most important part to most people. But I just don't know.
America was born.
I don't know anything about it. I don't.
But what about
there's only so much
Jefferson?
time.
What about Thomas Jefferson and his Jeffermation proclamation? He proclamated that Jeffersonium is the number one way of proclamation.
I did enjoy the Jeffermation proclamation. It was one of my favorite proclamations was the Jeffermation one.
And Andrews, who was his vice president at the time, declared that, we mustn't go to war, but he was forthright because he was a character. He was quite a character. They were all characters. Let's,
it's so foggy and hard to trust that, it's a very foggy and hard to trust world history as provided to you by anybody.
Yeah.
Even scholars, I would say. It's like, it's just difficult. It's like, it's hard to pin down what people's biases are and what kind of thing they're painting. Like I really like Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, I believe is the name of it.
Oh, I think you told me about that.
It's a really cool reframing of things, of like, it's all of history from the Native Americans' point of view or from the slaves' point of view or whatever. And it's a cool book, but that's also, I think it's a great book.
It's from 1980 too. 1980 as well, not 1982. Don't go read the 1982.
It was a bit more groundbreaking back then, I think, too. Because,
no, that's still cool.
And I thought, what a great take, what an important, interesting perspective, and also at the same time, that's going to be bias as well. Every documentary, even when it's for a good cause, is going to be biased. It's just like, it's just hard when you get sucked into the pop culture of the news stuff and like, we love our country. No, we hate our country. There's just too much. There's too much going on there. It's just not. It's not objective enough.
Yeah, and it changes by the second. Mm-hmm. And I was hearing this fun etymology thing with speaking of history, where Victor Wooten's brother Reggie, who they call the teacher, he tells what?
Can I stop you? You didn't tell people who Victor Wooten was, by the way. I didn't even know who Victor Wooten was when you talked about him.
Well, he was a leader of the Confederacy, of course.
When you talked about him on the music episode, I just thought he was a guy that wrote a good music book. That's all that I know.
Oh, no, he's like one of the best bass players ever.
Of all time,
he's played since he was 5. He was touring with Marvin Gaye when he was 5. No, not Marvin Gaye. Who am I thinking of? Curtis Mayfield. Whoops. I mean, kind of similar genres-ish, but Curtis Mayfield, not Marvin Gaye. But perhaps also played with Marvin Gaye, but doesn't matter. Curtis Mayfield is who I'm thinking of, Superfly. So Reggie, his brother, was saying that I tell all my students, just get 2 books, get a Bible and a dictionary. And I just ask you to read the Bible and then look up other stuff. So it's like, look up this word, devil. What is that? Let's look. Devil, deveil. It means to deveil. So he wasn't evil. He's deveiling stuff. He's like uncovering things and just is basically going through all these words in the Bible that you think are weird, but then like, what is the breakdown of what that means? But an interesting one was for history, where the opposite of history is mystery, where like history is what we say happened and it's the masculine, like this is a record of time. And then mystery is like, we're not sure, but it's the feminine part. It's the miss and the his. I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch there, but when he says it, it sounded super cool.
Sounds a little manic to me, which we'll talk about.
But in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. There's
seeing connections where they might not be. It's fun.
One of the things that we'll talk about is that mania. There's a lot of reasons why, it's not always a hindrance to be manic and hypomanic and have manic episodes, especially when it's within the domains of the things that you're familiar with or things that add value to your life. Mania tends to have a bigger impact on people when they have this big idea to start this brand new thing of a thing that they like aren't familiar with in any way, and just like, I'm gonna make a new kind of soup that no one's ever thought of before, and it's going to be chunky but smooth or whatever, and they've like never cooked in their life. That's when mania gets out of hand.
And when
Kanye West can channel the mania in kind of the right sort of ways, because he's like he channels it into his art a lot. You know, like so it's just an example of people like that. Where like, yeah, obviously he's not always doing that, but he is channeling some of it into his art and being prolific and everything.
Someone described him as some comic or something, was like he is, and they were saying it in a loving way, but they're like, Kanye is a mentally ill person who occasionally makes music. Yeah. As opposed to a musician who is mentally ill. It's like the mental illness is the main thing. And then sometimes he goes and makes music.
Seems like that to me. But he's channeling it into a productive place for him. But I'm not a Kanye fan. A lot of people are.
Oh, yeah. He's got like 1,000 listeners.
A lot of people say he's the best. I don't get it.
The best anything. Best shirt designer, best shoe designer, best husband, best father, best friend, best podcast guest, best haircut receiver, best angry face guy, best... I don't know. I don't even know any of his songs. I know the one that's the Ray Charles one. What is it? Gold Digger. But I don't know the other ones. I'm sure I would though if I heard more of them. And perhaps I'll be the biggest Kanye fan ever in 2030. But until then, don't know.
I think we found another thing that we agree upon. So is that we both aren't big Kanye fans. So Victor, that came from that reference, Victor's brother with the...
Oh yeah. That was just a tangent about the word history and breaking down the word history with the male version of it is his. And then what is it with the
going back to China, going back to,
TikTok.
Are things communism or not? Going back to TikTok, which we aren't on, which by the way, let me just throw this out there.
Throw it out.
Just on the off chance that we have a listener that is some TikTok social media guru or even some Reddit guru or something like that. Hit us up if you feel like trying out some sort of an internship or something like that, because we would be open to of all of the tasks that Banana does, and you know, it's not what we have to offer is drinking your own piss in a dungeon, as you know, which Matt McCool and Rihanna Banana both do.
We just got new piss warmers installed, so it'll be extra warm.
Yeah, we're on our way up. And so McCool, our editor, Banana's been my assistant for years, and she's taken on a zillion different tasks for a zillion different projects. Speaking of mania, and one of the things that she would prefer to delegate elsewhere is some social media stuff, perhaps. And we don't have a TikTok presence, and we don't have a Reddit presence, and so just throwing it out there. If someone is looking for exploring, taking our content and collaborating with us in some way on there, we'd be open to it.
Maybe.
So maybe. So
this brings us to, which I guess TikTok is the end of the social media journey.
I mean, I just mentioned Reddit. Though
Reddit we would sandwich in between, because Reddit is less about your identity and it's so much more about the content. But when you think of who are your favorite Reddit people, it's nobody. And there's been a handful, like there was one person called Shitty Watercolor for a little bit. This is like 2010s. They would make a watercolor drawing of something that was popular that day, and they would just call it Shitty Watercolor. And it wasn't actually that shitty. It was just
Had to do with something of the day,
Yeah,
what's the NFT guy?
Bored Apes.
No, the first 69
Beeple.
million
People. Yeah.
like that, but with watercolor, kind of.
Yeah.
No, interesting.
And that's the only one I can think of. Other than that, there's no Reddit celebrities. It's all content based. Like people would become famous because Reddit helped them over time, but never like this is someone active on Reddit. Whereas Twitter has famous Twitter people.
But when I see it and I'm not in it, and I know that it skews
Male.
No, I think it skews intellectual. I mean, it probably skews male as well, but I have a lot of female friends that are like big Reddit users as well. That really, I mean, the algorithm of just the simplicity of the upvote and everything is something that's sort of interesting. And I actually do think that it could be something that's interesting for us, where we have things like an octopus episode and a primate episode and a bipolar episode. And we have all of these episodes that are all over the place that maybe fit in all of these different channels and could possibly attract different listeners. You know what I'm saying? Not,
maybe in highlight form.
Anything.
But I mean, attracting someone to a long form content is such an interesting game because no one is looking for long form stuff most of the time.
Very difficult.
I actually am, but then how do you convince someone that this is the long term format you want, and how do you even know that? So
marketing funnels, you get people in with like the 15-second thing, and then they watch a little longer clip and a longer clip, and like, okay, maybe I'll check out a full episode. I've seen this, I recognize this enough now, and then they listen to it enough where they want to hear bonus episodes and join Patreon.com, where if you like what we do here and want to hear, we don't do ads. We subside completely on Patreon. And one of the things about all the Patreon content is we don't even need to do plugs like this, because we already got you. So it's all of the good stuff that we do without having to hawk all of our stuff that we are very proud of course. So go on Patreon. You can get your own Mind Under Art episode right away, very quickly within joining Patreon.
Within 15 minutes, we'll wake up, we'll record it, and it'll be at your front desk. But it's having trouble uploading. So once the internet fixes itself, it'll be there. But yes, I wanted to name a couple of honorable mentions that we missed. Do you remember Foursquare?
Yeah, wasn't that
Foursquare was dumb.
Let me try to describe it, because I was never on it, and it'll be a fun game because I know I'm wrong. Foursquare is a service where you tell people the restaurant or business that you're going to.
Yep.
And maybe they meet you there or something, or also enjoy that thing, kind of like a Yelp, but in real time.
Yep. And you check in. So every time you go to a coffee shop or restaurant, you pull out your phone and you would check into it. And if you checked in more than anybody else, you would become the mayor of that place.
Ooh,
and I remember at South by
fun.
Southwest, people would like kind of flaunt that around like, oh, I'm the mayor of this IHOP now. Oh, it's stupid, but also it's not stupid. And it's right around the time Humble Brag was invented. Remember Harris Whittles? He invented Humble Brag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's been gone for like a decade now.
R.I.P.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, at least 7 years.
So another or these are not honorable mentions. These are actually
I started
dishonorable.
at the same time of Harris Whittles. He
Really?
was an Emerson kid in Boston. Yeah,
Really?
I knew Harris. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
And yet you did nothing.
I did nothing.
You did nothing. You sold him heroin.
He skyrocketed beyond me. All of those Emerson kids, like in Boston, we were like, these kids suck at stand up. And then they just went on to make all of the TV shows that you know and love today. and are very talented.
Yeah, man. I mean, some of the shows. There's a lot of crap out there. Not Harris Whittles. He wrote all good ones. But I should come up with a list of the shows I was going to say I don't like before I just say that. Oh, another honorable mention of the thing, Vine. Vine lasted about 6 months.
Yeah, that was scooped, right? Like Insta just scooped it.
I think so. I think they bought it and then it dissolved. Let's see what its
They were
fate
just
was.
like, that's like you said, the Zuck acquires.
Yeah, they just, let's see, does Vine still exist? Twitter discontinued Vine Mobile. I think Twitter bought it and discontinued it. Twitter bought it. It failed to support its content creators due to high levels of competition, monetizing parent company, as well as issues as, yeah, okay. It went away because it's stupid and I hate it and it's good that it's dead, but it was just one head of the Hydra. So it basically is what TikTok was meant to be. It probably would have just become what TikTok is now if it was still around. And Snapchat also. Snapchat, I'm trying to figure out how to work these in there. Snapchat was supposed to take over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It was the chosen one that was supposed to be, if you go back and look at Gary Vee videos from 10 years ago, it's like Snapchat's going to take over everything. And then now I think Snapchat still exists, but it's not one of the top 3. Mm-hmm. And this is to bring up that the features can just get stolen. So you think that if your feature is what you're riding on, the developers at the other app can just take that feature and then they already have the user base and then they use it. So that's not evil or anything. That just kind of is what it is. So who knows where this will go? Any predictions? What do you think will still be here in 5 years? I think YouTube will still be here. I think TikTok won't be here in 5 years. I don't know why. I'm just giving it old, and I don't think it'll be here. Instagram also, I don't know if it'll still be here in 5 years.
I think Instagram might hold. My impression of TikTok is that, and we kind of have touched on this in a different episode, but about the kind of clunkiness of the editing actually being a feature, the kind of like awful green screen and the like loud, you know, like our TVs have like your font and the colors perfectly blended in and it looks just like TV or something like that. It's so slick and perfect font of the captions and all of these things. Whereas everything that gets attention is like weird. It's like a block sideways over someone's face of like, it's a white background with like with black lettering that's just like fart impression with sleeping wife or something like that, so you know exactly what it is and it sticks out because it's bad. But it's like that'll just be banner blindness, sort of. Like,
what's banner blindness?
Banner blindness is
when you can't see the Hulk.
It happened during, when AOL, when the internet happened, when you can't see the Hulk. Fuck you for that line. That was very good. I didn't give it the credit it deserved when you said it. That's so dumb. So AOL has AOL comes out. What was it? America Online.
Yeah.
For the kids out there, pioneers. Which, by the way, funny thing about AOL, they had their discs and stuff, and you could buy 10 hours at a time or whatever. And then one day they're like, what if we had an unlimited? What if we had? What if we offered an unlimited plan to people. And they're like figuring it out, like figuring out how much it would be. And then they're like, so we'll need like a couple more servers or something. The way they calculated how much more internet people would use. We're like, well, they're purchasing like 10 hours a month right now. So you figure you give it to them unlimited, probably 15 hours a month. And it just shut down everything. They had to buy server things from just every source in the world for way too much money, and like they grossly underestimated.
I forgot about that world. Like back in the late 90s, if your website got too many hits, you would pay for it. Like it would be a problem if too many people showed up at your house.
Yeah. So in the AOL days, one of the things people stumbled on was like, oh, I have a website. You know what will work is you put this header and it flashes, and people will see your 50% off sale because it's flashing like I'm not saying a subtle like notice that it's different than the rest of the page. You know, this is just strip club kind of lighting on websites was the early like buy this thing, and it did not take humans long at all to just completely block that out. And they just completely stopped working. And so then ads had to change really quickly to become more nuanced and to not have, because that reward thing turned into something like painful or whatever, like really quickly. So people just no longer saw a big flashing banner.
Yeah.
And when I look at TikTok, I think this is pretty fun and cute right now that people are able to slap together bad editing in a way, and it's kind of like jarring with how bad it is. And people are going to get used to that. And in a way that like right now they're used to it in a way where it's like, this is really fun and compelling, and it's sort of like absurdist. It's kind of like everyone gets to do their own Tim and Eric.
Yeah,
like it's like the whole
Tim and Eric
world gets to do Tim and Eric right now, and I'm not sure that has longevity.
No, and it shouldn't. And that's fun. And not to say that whatever comes after it will not make us miss this era, because I'm sure we will. I'm sure we're going to look back in 2027 and be like, remember how simple 2022 was? Mm-hmm. There would just be TikToks. We didn't have brain ads. It probably won't even change that much. What am I talking about?
Brain ads is a great name for a company.
Brain ads.
Brain ads. So, if you're ready for a brain ad, we have the Mind Under Matter Campout. If you're following,
looking good. Those look good on the screen.
Ooh,
and that's a wrinkled one too.
That's a wrinkled one.
Show it up close to the camera. Show the campfire up close.
Boom! Look at that. Got that honey bear. If you've been following me on Instagram, I shared a couple stories of some of Ramin's standees, but we're going to be posting that on. We just got a couple test ones complete. We're going to be posting a bunch of those on the Mind Under Pod Instagram, where if I was your emperor, you would all be, because I like it. It's a fun platform, and it's especially a fun medium for us, and we would love to have more traction and engagement like everyone else in the world. So we very much appreciate everyone that shares and supports, of course. And our campout, we just yesterday, even in the horrible funk that I've been in, I locked in breakfast
With Tiffany's.
breakfast and coffee place. I also have lots of feelers out for food trucks. They're probably pretty close to the next time we have an episode. We'll have nearly all of the food trucks locked in. We just can't announce them yet, but we're making sure that there's a vegan option each day, of course, and then having a slew of other fun stuff.
It's just a banana next to a bacon truck.
Well,
Just the bacon truck here, and then there's a banana next to it. Just kidding. There's going to be all sorts of stuff.
Well, that you say that it's another reason to buy tickets now, because not only will you get in the early 222 and get all of the things that come along with it, which is a keychain that will enter you in a raffle and gain access to areas where only the first 22 get, but also as more tickets get added, things like the variety of food trucks that we can have increase. So if we are having 500 people a day, that means that we're going to have 3 food trucks a day. But if we have 1,000 people a day, that means that we have
6,000 food trucks a day.
6 food trucks a day. So you have a lot more to pick from, and everything is like that. So the sooner that you get a ticket, not only are you helping yourself, but you're also helping us plan and secure things like that are of higher quality, rather than scrambling till the last week or two when everyone tends to buy tickets for things like this. So that's why we've done these incentives to encourage people to buy tickets earlier, just so like we've said in the past. This is why you have RSVPs for weddings and everything else. It's because you don't want to have to quick account for 300 extra seats being filled and trying to figure out how to feed everyone and everything like that. It's going to be much easier if you buy tickets ahead of time. So we'll make sure and hang out with you guys, those keychain holders, the most that are there, that got the tickets early because you helped support the fest the most and are the hardcores. And next week we have a bipolar episode. We'll probably do we're going to take a survey, talk about being bipolar a little bit as a plan. Then I'll share some personal stories in the bonus episode, and then we are also planning an episode about in and out group behavior, hopefully soon. I think that we're maybe going to do an episode, speaking of food trucks, I think we're going to do an episode on food and food science and the science of satiation and why we feel full at certain times and what influences our appetite. And so those are some of the things they have to look forward to coming up. And I say all of that because some of you are in Discord and you might have thoughts on these subjects, which we always love you being a part of the conversation and sharing, and maybe, some researchers and stuff like that we should look into on those subjects. So thank you so much for tuning in. This was super fun. Check us out on Instagram, as it is the social media episode, Mind Under Pod. And until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys.
See you, suckers.